Hey, welcome back to the Infamous Podcast. This is episode 294, Comics, Clones, and Superman.
Oh my.
I didn't put the oh my because I've had I think there's 5 episodes that have oh my at the end where I've done something like this.
So it'd be a little bit too derivative.
We're coming up on the 6-year anniversary of the show. So I'm thinking that at some point I'm going to reuse a title just unintentionally. Because we were still talking about Star Wars and DC and Marvel and, TV and all that stuff. So who knows? Who even knows? I don't know. I still think maybe after 300, we go 300 and then we do a new episode 1.
Kind of like comics do.
Yeah.
Do a reset.
What comics are doing right now. Absolutely. All right. So I'm Brian.
I'm Darryl.
And we're recording in person this week, which we haven't done in quite a while. And we're using some new technology. So if this episode doesn't sound great, that's on me. A poor workman or poor craftsman blames his tools.
Always blames his tools.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm excited. We're using the Zoom PodTrack P4 this week. And I know this is a little inside baseball, but, it is what it is. All right, so this week, comics, we've got BRZRKR number 3, Nightwing number 81. Then we're talking Loki. We're talking Bad Batch, and then closing out with Supes and Lolo.
That's a good lineup.
I gotta say, we've been kind of down. We were down on episode 1 of Loki. Me way more than you.
Mm-hmm.
We've been a little down on Bad Batch. Not to the point where it's like, oh, this show's awful, because it's not. No. And we've been super high on, no pun intended, Superman and Lois. But this week, all 5 things we're talking about, to quote Tom Haverford, are bangers. Yeah,
they're pretty good. And like you're saying, to have everything that we talk about be that way,
right?
This
was
a great week.
This was such an awesome week.
Yes.
It's I watched Loki twice. I watched Supes and Lolo twice, and I read BRZRKR and Nightwing a couple times each. So it was because it was so awesome to go back to. Not to say everything was great. I definitely have a bunch of issues with a bunch of stuff, but I mean we're critics. That's what we do, right? We criticize, but it's all constructive. But yeah, and then movies are starting to come back. So I was thinking about that. It's it takes, 21 days, 3 weeks to build a habit, right? Mm-hmm. I have to get into the habit of looking at movie showtimes again, because it's something that I haven't done in a year. And so once that happens, I think once I get that back in my head, I'm going to be like, yes, I'm going to the movies Sunday, but there's no early showings right now.
Right, yeah.
I know everything's at 1, 2 o'clock.
Yeah, I was going to say, because some of them are probably for financial reasons. They're not opening until...
or they don't have enough people to work. That's the other thing.
Yeah, that's been happening to a couple places that I've seen.
Yeah, I wonder if they'd let a 13-year-old work, because I could send Haley to work at the movie theater so I could get free movie passes. Anyway, all right. So this week we're kicking off with BRZRKR number 1. Okay, so this week we're kicking off with BRZRKR number 3. Sorry, and again, Keanu Reeves, Matt Kindt, Ron Garney, Bill Crabtree, writers, art, colors, and this week actually had pencils were Ron Garney, and then colors were Bill Crabtree. But so this one is interesting. The shocking history of B is revealed as Diana digs deeper into his memories. Meanwhile, the mysterious Caldwell makes his next move to take advantage of this information and put his master plan into motion. We got to see... So last month with BRZRKR, we got to see B being born. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting. And this time we kind of get to see the aftermath of what he's responsible for in their region of the planet. And we get to the point where we learn why he doesn't talk, which is really cool.
Yeah. And very, I think it was like the tail end of last episode or last issue where they were kept building him up, like saying, "Am I ready yet? Am I ready yet?"
Right.
And now he was finally ready. And then you see not just one attack on one tribe, but you see his father basically using him as, and I think the term is inute or something along those, like weapon or tool.
Right.
And I thought it was just very interesting because it started off as, pray to the gods to give us this to help prevent us from being wiped out by our enemies. And, again, the whole absolute power thing happens in the sense of you have this ultimate weapon in B, and what does his father do with it?
Conquers the world.
Yes.
So I think that it's really summed up on what page is this? On page 17, when B is asking his dad, "Did I do well?" And he says, "Son, yes." And he says, "This is good," and this is good. It's a question. And his dad says, "If we spared the women and children, they would only have raised children into men bent on destroying our valley, and the children would never forget." So you're getting this view into like what's happening here with his dad. And he says, "I don't forget." B says to his dad, "I don't forget either. There's only one thing I don't remember, Father. I don't remember you being there in the cave with Mother. Who is he?" And he says, "He." And he says, "Who is my father?" And it's really, really kind of like interesting that B in this moment is having this introspective, like, or existential, sorry, like, who am I? Where am I from? Like, who is all of this? And they have the conversation about, you're not my dad, whatever. And then there's another lightning bolt later, and and he asks, what has she done? And then we get the like kind of the last kind of big battle with B where his dad is pulling out the arrows, and he says, "You're my son as much as she is your mother. Know that we love you, and we would be nothing without you. We would never do anything to hurt you." And then it comes to the dialogue from the present. He stopped talking after that. He needed a break. The important thing is he wants to remember. He is remembering. And yeah, so it's the doctor and Caldwell, and they're talking. And one lightning strike would be a singularity. Two means it's reproducible. It's like, oh my God, what are these idiots gonna do?
Yeah.
I'm so happy. Like as I was reading this, I was super happy when like that you reminded me of this book, because I probably wouldn't have picked it up because it's like, oh God, another celebrity, writing a comic, and I don't know how much Keanu is involved. I would assume a lot because his name's on it, and he's one of those guys that puts a value on his name. But man, this is just great. I mean, this is for Boom. This is a flagship book. This is a book that I think could legitimately go for 5 years, 60 issues, ish, depending on like if they can keep the pace up. But yeah, I mean, and it's the way it's unfolding over three episodes, 3 issues. I do it too. Over 3 issues. We've learned a lot, but we still have a lot to learn. And just rolling it out like this, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think this is just one of my favorite comics right now.
I agree. And on the rollout part, a lot of times you can tell when a story is purposefully holding back and spoon feeding you, and it kind of disrupts the flow because they don't do as good of a job as this book does in saying, yes, we know there's a lot still they're holding back, but the way that they unfold the story, it makes sense of why we're not getting everything at once, or it really, because this is a simple story right now, but there's a lot of complex issues underlying that we haven't gotten to yet.
Right.
That's good. And to your point, as far as like why you said you could see this going, 5 years or so. and it's because of the complexity underneath of the simplistic story that we've gotten so far, and how many things they can do with this that really, the sky's the limit for a book like this, just because, again, it's telling a story and not trying to, spoon feed you a message like we say all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, even at the very end of it, with the learning about the protocols that they have for B, and you see there's an adjustment to the protocol in the very last panel where the soldier drops 2 pills into his hand, and he says, "New protocol adjustment 2 this time," and it's like, oh, okay, so like, again, he's not a part of this unit. They're studying him. They're using him. They're, and I think that's great. I like, it was such a cool little reveal. Like, I'm sure most people are like, oh, I saw that coming and whatnot. And it's like, okay, fair enough. I mean, it's not a surprise necessarily, but it's still like, it was a really cool moment to be like, okay, we're doing this. And then it happened immediately. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, oh, okay, well, we'll wait till he gets back. No, he's in the field and they're like, drop.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm really curious to see like what that leads to, like what's in these medications. And, I know it's similar to kind of like the stabilizing, because again, if you go back to the past and that last city that they conquered, and the soldiers were like, okay, we're done. Right. And then he's like, no, father said no one. And I mean, he goes Darth Vader on the younglings. So like that was one of the things a couple of questions as far as, what are these meds stabilizing his mood, preventing, kind of keeping him in check, or what? So, right. And again, what's Caldwell's end game?
Yeah. I don't know. It's really cool. I like I said, I really like it. I want to see more. I just want to know. Here's the thing is I want to see more, and I say I want to know, but at the same time, like, I want it to unfold for me, right? The way it's unfolding. So, and Matt Kindt is a great comic book writer. I mean, Keanu is super creative. So, I feel like I judged a book by its cover, by saying, oh, it's just another celebrity. When, in reality, like I should have remembered who I was dealing with, because we're both big fans of Keanu. So
yeah, and I'm only a matter of time. And again, I haven't looked this up or anything along those lines, but what they're going to be doing in the sense of movie, TV series, streaming, whatnot, animated. I mean, I would love to see this as an animated.
I would prefer to see this animated, as long as Seth Rogen's not attached to it. So I had after we recorded last month about issue 2, I went and watched some reviews, and I forget which channel it was, but they were talking about how this is essentially just their Netflix pitch. Like, this comic is their Netflix pitch, and fair enough. But if I'm Netflix or Amazon or Apple or whoever, like I feel like Apple would benefit the most from something like this, right? Mm-hmm. It's a big budget, like action, gory, Keanu Reeves led story, and
they don't have anything like that on their platform.
They really don't. I mean, it's a lot of comedy, a lot of drama, but looking at this, I agree with you. Animation, I feel like, would be the way to go, because there's a lot you can do, and you don't have to worry about Keanu turning 60, 65, 70 years old. Mm-hmm. You just, like, he can show up and do his voice. He can knock out because B doesn't talk a whole lot. So, I mean, he could knock out all of his lines for a season in probably an afternoon, and get that done. So, but when I was listening to people talk about that and saying, oh, this is just their Netflix pitch, it's like, I think you're doing a disservice to what the comic is doing. Because if it was a Netflix pitch, they would have just laid everything out in the first issue. And while, yes, I agree, like, this is a show that they want to Netflixify or whatever, like, verb we want to make up for that. This is a book that needs to just, breathe, and like let's give it 2 years before like we really think like, hey, let's make a TV series now. So yeah. All right. So out of 5 purposeful lightning strikes, what do you give it?
I give it a 3. Another solid outing. Again, it's one of those where it's a simple story, and while I loved seeing the past, I do want to catch up more in the present with B. And again, I know that's the not the potential, but that's where they're going.
Right.
We're gonna start getting more of B in the present. We're gonna start getting more of what Caldwell wants. So this is another solid outing.
Yeah.
I probably like the first 2 issues a little bit better, but again, this is a very connective story, and I really like how everything is unfolding.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 3.5. I liked it a little more than you. I like the stuff in the past. I think it's doing a great world foundation building. The other thing is I like just the subtle differences in the coloring between the past and the present.
Yes.
Everything in the past is a red orange. Everything in the present is a blue purple. And I really like that. It's minor, it's little, but it's a care in the storytelling, especially with the sequential visual medium that is comics.
Yes. And I forgot to mention, I really like how the art does such a great job of marrying itself to the story.
Hey, do you like beer and nerd stuff and Darryl?
And wings.
And wing. Oh God, their wings are so good. All right, so we are doing a live episode of the infamous podcast at Fretboard Brewing in Blue Ash, Ohio. So if you live anywhere near Cincinnati, go to infamouspodcast.com, click on our Facebook link. We have an event there. Sign up. All the information is there that you need, but we will be recording a live episode from Fretboard at 7 p.m. on July 19th. That's a Monday. Show up. You might be able to be on the show. Who knows? Drink some good beer, eat some good food, and we're going to have a good show. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So
Be interesting. It'd be very fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
all right. We hope you can join us. See you there. So as much as I liked Berserker number 3, I loved Nightwing 81.
You just like it for the T-shirt.
Babs is a straight savage. Not at all surprised by that. I thought that was just a great little thing that Tom and Bruno did there. But no, this is great. It picks up right where 80 leaves off. Nightwing is in the midst of the fire. Heartless shows up, and you find out that Heartless is got some technology going on where you can't. He's just, you see him, but it's infrared. He's all blurred out, which is pretty cool. And then he does this great thing where he pulls out a fire extinguisher and clears a path for the kids.
Yeah.
So it's okay, that was a very interesting nuance to this character, because there's been so for one thing, Heartless's design is derivative of Hush and the Court of Owls and just a bunch of different people who wear that kabuki style mask. But I'm not saying the character is derivative. I would the one thing I don't like about Heartless is the character design.
Mm-hmm.
But everything that we were shown about how his actions and things, I just love. I think he's especially for Dick to be his Nightwing, to be his foil. Nightwing, the biggest thing about Dick Grayson is his heart. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's got that ass, right? But
no, that's Cap.
But no, I mean, he's this character who's 100% heart. Everything he does is to try and make the world a better place. And you have a guy who everything he does is trying to steal heart from a person. But he doesn't want to hurt kids, even though he set the pier on fire.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that. Yeah, I thought the design. I actually liked when we first saw him at the last page in last episode, and then you get to see the whole thing in this one, and it's a little bit less impressive. But I'm really curious to know because again, we know he's enhanced in some way, shape, or form.
Which was a great moment, because when Dick throws the escrima stick, is that how you say it? Yeah, I always get that wrong. And he catches it, and he I love the next panel because his eyes are a little bit wider in the mask, and he's like, I've underestimated him. And then he takes a shot to the head
again,
which, you know, this just pisses me off more and more about the whole Rick Grayson thing and you know, them shooting him in the head and all of that. But he recovers quickly, and being the fact that, you know, he's one of the 3 best martial artists in the DCU, you know, he, you know,
it's kind of arbitrary, but okay.
Super easy, barely an inconvenience to get out of this one, right? Actually, it's not at all. It was super hard, and it wasn't until Heartless blew up the other side of the pier that Tim was taking the kids to that he had to get out of it. And then my favorite moment of this happened is Dick calls on Blüdhaven to help. And you know, everyone's like, you're crazy. What are you doing, Blood? This is not Blüdhaven. And he says, no, Blüdhaven is the people. And you know, all these ships show up to help these kids. And it was
Blüdhaven's not a place; it's a people.
Right? I kind of like felt that like Asgardian moment there. That was it was kind of cool, and seeing that and his faith in Blüdhaven being, you know, there, and then he promptly passes out.
Yeah, and this is one of those where my inexperience with Nightwing and his, you know, relationship to Blüdhaven, it's a little bit of a disservice in the sense I didn't get that same type of impact. I got it from the standpoint of logic, in the sense I know what he's doing, but I don't have that history to be like, man.
So Chuck Dixon spent about 100 issues in the late 90s to the mid 2000s, late 90s to mid 2000s, really like building up this is Dick's home. You know, this is his city. Like, he's the Batman of Blüdhaven, and he's gonna do it his way. Whereas, you know, Gotham was his adoptive home. You know, Gotham was the site of his parents' death. You know, there's a whole lot of baggage there. Whereas Blüdhaven was a fresh start, and it never had a hero, and it's as bad, if not worse, than Gotham. So, you know, to have the citizens of the denizens, if you will, of Blüdhaven step up like this was really cool.
Yeah, and probably because it had to do with boats, it put me in mind of the Dark Knight.
A little bit.
Where, you know, the Joker is counting on people's selfish self-interest to do what he wanted them to do, and they prove otherwise. And that's kind of, to me, in the sense that that's how I related to this a little bit.
Yeah.
In the sense of, you know, this and it's not like Heartless necessarily, you know, with the purposefully did this in the sense of the way Joker did, because, you know, Joker had the spiel to Batman, like, watch what these people do, basically.
Right.
But it ends up being the same thing, similar in the sense of, you know, when Nightwing calls out to people, and they answer the call.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Tom Taylor is a fine comic book writer, but he's never shied away from dipping his toes into other things for inspiration. Plain and simple. And that's not a bad thing.
No,
I mean, like,
it's not.
I like Tom Taylor. He's actually crushing it on everything he's doing right now. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, to me, what's important is he's writing this Nightwing book with care for the character, intention for where it's going, and like a little bit of intrigue that's going on, which leads us to the second half of the book when, you know, Barbara, while Dick is out, does a whole bunch of research, and we find out that Zucco, Mayor Zucco now, has an FBI file that's largely redacted, but I skipped a part. Tim calls the dog Bitewing, and Dick says, Bitewing, that's actually a great name, but her name is Haley. And then Barbara retorts, which I shared this panel with you. People are you're telling me the people in this room, or Tim says, you're telling me that people in this room can't have two names. And Barbara says, I have three. But the most important thing about this this panel is she's wearing the meme of Batman smacking Robin as a t-shirt.
That's just great.
So, just savage. But yeah, so we move on and we find out that she is Mayor Zucco, and she was Tony Zucco's daughter from his first marriage, but she was raised by Boss Maroney, the Maroney crime family. So she's still got a mobster in her blood. And so, yeah, so it's a really interesting thing. And then we see this this FBI file that is largely redacted. I mean, like, there's almost nothing in there about her. So Dick is supposed to like take the night off because he's got a concussion.
Which I'll have to say, I do like how they're not just brushing over it. You know, so many times comics, when a super hero gets punched, knocked out, or whatever, they're like, he's fine by the next page. And this is, it's one of those things, because he even mentions, I'm seeing way too many spots for someone who's had multiple head injuries.
Right.
Or something along those lines.
And just to point out on page 16, just the way Bruno laid this page out and drew everything, it flows amazingly. And then you get this hero shot of Dick in the bottom left corner. That is just beautiful artwork. I mean, it is.
I love this art.
The way he draws, the way he's drawing this book is amazing. Oh crap! I didn't mean to close that. But yeah, and so Dick is like, well, I'm gonna take a trip to see Melinda Zucco, and they're like, yeah, no, you're gonna rest. And we get to the next page, and he's laying in bed with Nightwing, and he's like, no, I'm gonna head out, because this is what he does.
Right.
I mean, I equate Daredevil closer to Nightwing than I do Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They're both stubborn. They're both, crazy as far as like with what they're willing to jump off of. But at the end of the day, they both put their personal safety last. And I'm not saying Batman doesn't do that, but Batman's on a whole nother level than the two of them. But yeah, so he gets in there, and of course Barbara's watching because she's got his goggles on. He forgot to turn them off. And again, Bruno does this great thing on this next page. Actually, it's on page 18, where Dick uses his escrima sticks to like laser cut a hole in the glass. And the way he does it is like a how-to illustration. That has been my favorite little trope that Bruno has been doing with these with the art in this book, and hopefully Tom is involved in that. But yeah, so he unlocks the window, and Babs lets him know that someone's there, and it's Melinda's bodyguard with a katana waiting to cut his head off. But yeah, then we get another great page, like layout of action where, he disarms her. He figures out like she's really good. Again, underestimating who he's going up against. Could be the concussion. But then he takes a baseball bat to the back of the head.
Which cannot be good.
Again, for someone who just, got a concussion. The superhero concussion protocols really need work.
Yeah. Again, going back to Supernatural real quick, I don't know how many times Sam and Dean have been knocked cold in their 15 years.
Yeah. 15? I mean, I know 15 years ago the show came on, but anyway.
Continue.
So when we get to page 21, though, after this battle, Dick is tied to a chair. And there's something about this page that made me really think of... oh, shoot. It just totally... The Killing Joke. When the Joker has Jim Gordon tied up and he's trying to drive him crazy and break him, just the way the red was used on this page really was cool. And then when Dick realizes he's not wearing his mask, and Melinda Zucco is standing there holding it in front of him, and everything that he's going through, you kind of see in the fear in that middle panel.
Yeah.
Right. And so then he just breaks the ropes. I mean, he's not superpowered, but he's pretty strong. So I think the two of them maybe didn't know how to tie a knot. But he wants to know. He says, "You know me. I know you too. You worked for the Maroney crime family. You're the daughter of Tony Zucco." And she says, "No, I'm not. I thought I was for a long time, but then I learned the truth." and we get to the next page, and you just see her eyes, and in her eyes, she says, "My real father was named John Grayson," and she's got this very matter of fact like look about her. And I know it's art, so it's not like we're asking someone to act or anything like that. And then she, like the last like 4/5 of the page is, "I'm your sister," and Dick is taken aback, and she's just kind of standing there. The next issue is called The Graysons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is where it ends. Spoilers. I really hope this is her messing with him. Mm-hmm. So I am. There's things about characters' origin stories that I think kind of need to remain sacred. And the thing about Dick's parents is they've always been perceived as like really good people, mm-hmm. people who helped, people who loved and whatnot. And Dick seems to be older than her, so it would make you think it was an affair. Where this would work for me is if it turns out maybe she's older, she's like 4 or 5 years older than him, and maybe it was like a one night like dalliance before John and Mary Grayson were married. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how I feel about it. I trust Tom Taylor is going to do a good story, but I'm not a fan of these people going back, any of them, of the current crop of comic book creators, going back and changing origins and changing intentions of characters. Like they did the thing with Jason Todd in the Batman Urban Legends book where he killed someone when he was 14 before Batman even found him. And so he's been a killer all along because he killed him and he liked it. Like that was the thing. And it's mm-hmm. like, well, that kind of ruins everything about Jason Todd. So he's just been Red Hood all along. That's bullshit. Like, no, he was a troubled kid. Bruce found him and he saved him and he helped him. And then at the end of the day, Bruce let him down. And when he came back from the Lazarus pit, he went crazy, but also he realized Bruce let me down. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge motivation to him of saying like, I'm going to do what Batman does, but better by putting a period at the end of every sentence.
Now, I would say that would have worked only if, and again, this is a trope that's used too, just kind of like the I am your sister, I am your brother thing. That's another one that's used.
No, I am your father.
If they would have said, okay, he killed this guy, but he was so shocked that he had a feeling about it that he repressed it,
right?
And then coming through the Lazarus pit, resurrected that feeling or whatever. That would have worked. But on the whole, I agree. It's if you want to change or if you want a certain origin for a character, mm-hmm. guess what? Create your own.
Yeah, exactly. So, because when I think about this, all I can think,
how dare you?
But yeah, it's like, because who are you to stand on the shoulder of giants and say that their origin should be changed?
Right.
So, all right. So out of 5
starry-eyed concussions.
Let's say that 5 starry-eyed concussions. What do you give this one?
I give it a 3.5. I love the art. I just absolutely am in love with looking at this book, and I really like you breaking down how certain pages flow from panel to panel. I noticed that right away. When we first started, for what issue 78 when we first started this. Very curious about Heartless and what his motivations are. I'm with you. I'm not really on that train of Zucco being his half sister.
Right.
But again, Tom Taylor has done some good work over the past few years. So
yes,
I'll trust him. He's one of those. He's one of those guys. I'll trust him until he shows me that I can't trust him.
Yeah, I'm not like, oh my god, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like this is no good. So I'm 4 out of 5. The artwork, like the writing in this book is really good, but the artwork is just carrying it to another level. Yeah, so I think this is definitely one to check out, and yeah, I don't know, I liked it a lot. I'm just really happy because it feels like Nightwing's back. Loki episode 2, The Variant. We were not fans. Hold on, let me rephrase that. I was not a fan. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I was not a fan of the pilot.
I just thought it was meh.
I stand by my assertion that in most cases, the pilot is the worst episode of any series. The two standouts for me being Supernatural and Battlestar Galactica, because I didn't watch the miniseries. I watched 33, and that's a badass episode. But yeah, so in this episode, we get more of the multiverse. Loki joins the team. We get to see the variant fugitive version of Loki in 1985, kidnapping a TVA commander or agent or whatever they're called. I like to call them erasers because when they tap you with their stick, they erase you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's gonna catch on. But yeah, this was a much better episode. There was a lot of talking.
Yes.
Like a lot of talking.
A lot of
like,
conversation.
This show does not have a very big budget. I think most of the budget probably went to Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson's salaries.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, they're great. But there's not a lot of production quality to this.
Yeah. So when we went back to like, one thing I liked about this episode was how
Let's talk about what you like about it before we get.
One of the things I've had issues with in the MCU in general, not just last week's episode, but in the MCU, is how they've kind of put Loki in the sense of they kind of made him almost like the butt of a joke a lot of times.
Yeah.
And he's not given his due for being crafty and duplicitous and the god of mischief.
The god of mischief.
This episode does give us that intelligence factor because Loki's the one that figures out, okay, this is how the variant is staying one step ahead of us.
Yeah. But again, I mean, it's also like he's just thinking about what he would do.
Right. But it still comes across as it shows him more than just, a comic relief. And in that, and why I was talking about this is because to prove his point or to kind of like prove his theory, he goes back to Vesuvius.
Yeah. That was great.
Yeah.
That was such a great scene. But again, it was very low budget.
And that's where I was going with that because you could tell it was extremely low budgeted in that scene, but I love the scene. And again, it doesn't mean you have to put all this money into something to make it interesting. We're just saying that it shows that there's a budgetary concerns, at least the first couple episodes.
So, and who knows what the budget is going to look like. I felt like they blew their budget for the first two episodes on the climactic scene at the finale, the final couple minutes of this one. But yeah, I will say, I kind of want to see a real buddy cop movie between Hiddleston and Owen Wilson.
That's
That's the other.
That's the other thing that's good on here.
That I love the two of
I
them together. I really also enjoy Owen Wilson and Guju Mbatha-Raw.
Yeah,
I think that's how you say it. I don't know.
I can't help you on that one.
I have no idea. But as a
Ravina
Renslayer.
I almost
Judge
said Ravenclaw.
Yeah, right. Well, because I keep wanting to call her Rowena Ravenclaw, but that's not the name. So, but yeah, I feel like Owen Wilson is like the. I'm trying to think of the word. He's what is it? He's like the glue that's keeping
linchpin?
the show together. Linchpin. That's perfect. Words are hard. Hey, we're like 40 minutes in before I got there.
I don't think we did it last week, did we?
No, we didn't do one at all last week.
Nice.
We were on it. Words were easy last week. Barely
an inconvenience.
So, damn you for getting me hooked on those pitch meeting shorts. I want that shirt.
Oh, I know.
So anyway, but yeah, I think anytime that Owen Wilson is on screen, what we're seeing is good. Anytime that Tom Hiddleston is on screen, as long as he's not with Hunter B-15, anything is good. So that's Wunmi Mosaku.
Who and I'm not a fan of her as Hunter B-15, but I told you I loved her performance when she was Lady Loki or what have you.
Yes.
I loved her performance
Yes.
in that.
So I think as Hunter B-15, she's very unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
She's also just very, and I know you're not supposed to like the character, but like the thing I liked most about her was when Loki put the time collar on her and was torturing her. Like, I mean, honestly, it's like, yes, give it to her. And then when Lady Loki took her over, and you know, like you said, I've never seen her in anything else, so I'm not judging her as an actress.
Yeah,
or her
she's pretty
skill
good.
as an
She was
actor.
in Lovecraftian Tale or the Lovecraft Country
Oh.
or whatever. She was in that.
Yeah.
And she was
I
in
didn't watch
something else. I thought she was good in that,
Yeah,
but
she's just not good as that character. I'm just not a fan. But Loki ruining Mobius's lunch might be the funniest and meanest thing he's ever done, because he didn't need to do any of that to explain it. I think he was just like, that was him getting like his little comeuppance.
and I
you know?
love Mobius's don't do my salad.
Don't do my sound. And then when he takes the milk or the juice or whatever from Casey, and Casey's like, you, like, you know, because he almost got Casey killed.
Yeah.
You know, or erased by the erasers, not the hunters. But I do think that this episode moved the story along. The high points were Loki figuring it out, then like how Loki, the variant Loki, the other variant Loki. This is very confusing. Let's just call it Randy. How Randy was going through all the different parts of the multiverse and staying off the TVA's timeline.
And in case you're wondering, I wrote down all the places she went. Or,
Oh God.
yeah, it only took a couple minutes of pausing
Yeah.
scenes, but
So.
it's very interesting. Like there's like a couple of the MCU places she went is Vormir in 2301,
Okay.
Ego
Oh, yeah.
1382, Titan in 1982, Asgard in 2004, Sakaar in 1984, Xandar in the year 1000. And then there's a lot of places on Earth in
Yeah.
different times where I'm really curious to see what her end game is, because she tells Loki, this is not about you. But I don't know if she's talking about him or you in the sense of all us Lokis.
All Lokis, yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, that's interesting. I didn't even bother. I didn't care enough to.
Well, I watched a reaction and they were trying to do it, and I was like,
Oh.
you know what? I didn't even pay attention to
You
that.
know
So
what?
I went
I
back.
have a 4K TV. I can do that myself.
So I went back and I was like, oh, these are interesting dates. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
it was really cool.
so I feel like this would have been a better first episode.
Yes, and that's one of the things I wrote down.
I feel like they could have captured him and put him through orientation, and then like after orientation, you see hunters going to the Ren Fair, and then the episode goes from there. And it would have had, I think, like a little over a 56 minute, like 56, 57 minute runtime then, which I think would have been really good instead of like a 49-minute runtime, because these aren't going to be on TV. Like these are
Right.
made for streaming. I think the other thing about this is, and it's what I've realized with all of these Disney things, is I am of the mindset now I'd rather they drop them all at once, because that's how they're made. They're not made to be like an episodic television show. They're made to be streamed. They're just long movies. And the way they cut them up does not, like, I'm not excited to go back to it on Wednesday, but at the same time it's like I'm definitely going to watch Superman and Lois before I watch this.
So the first time they did this with WandaVision, it made perfect sense because of how WandaVision was split up. And I think we started talking
Well, the
about
first
this.
half of WandaVision was like a TV show where
Yeah.
it's like I can't wait to see what happens next week.
Right.
The second half of WandaVision was just an MCU movie.
Yeah.
That they could have just dropped all at once.
So, and I think we started talking about this with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier because how it felt.
What
The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Virtue Signal and the neutered soldier.
But I think we did talk about how it seemed like this was like a big movie and it didn't feel right how it was split up.
It was again. It would have been better to just drop all 6 at once, and move on to the next thing. This feels the same way,
Yes.
and because it's only 6 episodes, it definitely feels that same way.
Right.
Now, when they went to Alabama, from the time he dried himself off with magic until the end, this was the best we've seen of this TV show so far.
Yes.
And that is about 8 minutes of runtime.
Right. And again, this episode was a major improvement for me from not just what was going on screen, but also how it furthered the plot.
Right.
Because we were talking during the week how you said, yeah, the first episode, we both said it was like a 0 issue.
Mm-hmm.
The first episode could have been a 10 minutes, thing they could have put on.
Just put on YouTube. 10
Yes.
minutes, like, hey, this is an introduction to what's happening with Loki.
And
like,
then
hell, you could show him getting captured by the TVA, and then you just start with 1985 Ren Fair
Yeah.
and go. Like,
Yeah,
you know.
because this absolutely felt like a first episode
Mm-hmm.
to me, and looking back on last week, it just doesn't have that same vibe. It felt more out of place after watching this one,
Yep.
than it did when watching it originally.
So, yeah, and I mean, this one was, again, directed by Kate Herron. She's directing all 6 episodes, and it was Alyssa Karasik who wrote it. I thought the dialogue was really good this
Yeah.
week. Definitely a step up from last week. The other favorite thing I had was the jet ski magazine and the conversation about jet skis. And it makes me want to go watch Eastbound and Down.
I do like little things like that
Yep.
when they put them in scripts.
All right. So we both agree better than last week.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite up to what we were expecting from the show. Again, don't want to put words in your mouth. So stop me if I'm doing so. And Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson are magical.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. And yes.
All right. So out of 5 jet skis, what do you give this one?
I give this one a 3.5. A major step in the right direction. Really hoping that, unlike a previous MCU show we watched before this, it keeps that momentum.
Which show was that?
The one that I don't want to get shit for saying.
What?
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Virtue Signal and the Neutered Soldier. That's all I hear you say. Anyway. All right. Cool. No, I go 2.5. I give it up a half point from last week for me. It's better. It's not great. It's still a little self-contained as far as like what should be a huge like multiverse spanning story. And seeing the sacred timeline be ripped apart at the end has me pseudo excited for the next episode. I'm a trust but verify at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I have to watch it for myself before I decide anything.
That's fair.
Cool. The Bad Batch, to me, is just a formula. Right? I mean, do you disagree?
No, I say it all the time.
You're giving me this look like I agree with you, but I don't want to say I
No,
agree with you.
what do I call it? I'm a big RPG guy.
Yeah.
And a game like I'm a big not just RPG now, open world.
Yeah.
So for those who don't play open world games, you have the main quest, and then you have
Grand Theft Auto. Just think Grand Theft Auto.
you have side quests. And how many times in these games where you just get on these side quests that don't really do anything for the main story, but they are fun, and sometimes they are cool, but you have to go back to the path of the main story.
Yes.
And this is what I've been, that's what I've been telling people about the Bad Batch so far. It's like one big side quest.
Yep. Well, it's a bunch of little side quests.
Yeah.
It's not like one big. I mean, it's not even
multiple
one
side
big
quests.
narrative story.
Yeah. Every
at this
week
point.
is a new, this question mark here. Let me go to this. This question mark here. Let me go to that.
Mm-hmm.
And this week does a better job of steering us back
Right.
to what the main heart of the seasons,
Mm-hmm.
the season's through line is going to be.
I like the. I think this is my favorite episode so far.
Mine too.
For a couple reasons. One, we finally got some action. We got to see the Bad Batch be the Bad Batch. Not just like brutes, but using their brains like with the cannon and things like that. Crosshair was back. So I think now we have the correlation. The episodes that Crosshair is in are good. The episodes that Crosshair are not in, just don't watch. But again, it had the formula. There's something wrong with the ship they're on. Something happens where they have to run away. There's a cameo, and Dave Filoni's name pops up on the credits. I mean, that's the formula right there. I will say I jumped for joy with the cameo this week with spoilers, Cad Bane. I thought that was great. It's great to see him alive and well in the bounty hunting universe. I think it's 100% fan service though.
Oh yeah, I love the score change when he comes in.
I love that character. I love his design. His hat was a little small. Mm-hmm. Like his hat, the size of the brim of his hat is constantly changing. I like the one where it's real, like it's just real big, like Kentucky Derby hat. But I mean, Cad Bane is a great character, so I'm excited to see them have to go up against Cad Bane. Mm-hmm. Crosshair gets injured. That made me sad. I really hope they make a change to the character design. But based on the Walmart exclusive toy that just went on sale yesterday, which would be Friday the 18th, I'm guessing not, because that character, I mean, he looked like Crosshair. Mm. But yeah, it's this isn't a bad show. It's solid. It's a Volkswagen Jetta of shows, like I said last week. It's just it ticks off all these boxes, but it's such a formula that it's hard to really get into it. And I will say this, it's doing a better job than Clone Wars Season 1 and Rebels Season 1. Mm-hmm. But we also were introduced to these 5 characters of the Bad Batch plus
7.
Echo in Season 7. So Rebels was net new. Clone Wars, nobody knew what to make of it. They were afraid it was going to be like an Attack of the Clones, So, and it kind of was. But this is good. I think the animation's gotten better, especially with the action. Mm-hmm. I think Wrecker is far and away the star of this show from not just a character standpoint, but like you're rooting for him standpoint. And then for the people who are calling Omega Mary Sue's, or calling her Mary Sue, she didn't know how to deactivate that bomb. She let it off.
Yeah.
And that was great.
And you do see her improving, because remember, what was it, last week or the week before, when she had 2 episodes ago, where she was working with the bow and she was having trouble with it.
Yeah.
And now she's, again, we don't know how much time has passed, but she's been working on that.
Right.
And she used it.
And it also got knocked out of her hand too.
Yeah.
So like, it's not like she was all of a sudden this like range machine, like,
I think people use definition words that they don't actually know the definition of.
There's a great meme where it shows Anakin hard work to get to where he was, and then Rey's just on a cloud and it says convenient storytelling. And that kind of makes sense, like with the Force stuff, like the fighting stuff. I think Rey grew up on a planet where she had to fight, so she knew how to fight, which it also never made any sense why she did not adopt the dual-bladed lightsaber.
That would have been perfect for her.
That was who she was. Anyway, that's beside the point. Here with Omega, she messes up, she fails, she wanders off like a kid, gets into trouble like a kid, and one of the Bad Batch always has to rescue her. Mm-hmm. She has yet to get out of a predicament on her own. Now, I'm going to see people who are like, oh, well, she touched the right button to fire whatever. She grew up on a space station. Well, whatever, not a space station. But she grew up with the most advanced technology in the galaxy far, far away with the Kaminoans. Like, she knows how to use a panel. When he was like, yeah, deactivate the bomb. And she was like going through and she's like, okay, I know this. And then she cuts the wrong wire. And she thinks she's going to blow up. And she's like, why didn't it blow up? And Wrecker's like, it was a smoke bomb. It took me forever to figure that out. You think I'm going to do that to you? I loved it. I mean, there was a great moment.
Yeah.
The moment that Omega had with Tech, with, the engine and everything, was a great moment. Like, I mean, it was like, I think the people who, let me rephrase this. I think The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi did so much damage to the idea of just a capable female character in Star Wars that they're not giving this character a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, Fennec Shand is a great character, female. Cara Dune, great character, female. Both of which got a ton of backstory in a short, or let me rephrase, a ton of exposition in a short amount of time to who they were. Omega, we're getting to see grow as she goes. Not a Mary Sue, not at all. And honestly, like, her and Wrecker are my favorite part of the show.
Oh,
outside
absolutely.
of Crosshair.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even. I guess I don't put Crosshair in there just because we see so little of him.
I know, but whenever he's around, it's good.
But Wrecker and Omega, they're always the best part of the episode.
You have to say it like her too. Wrecker, Teak,
Omega, Teak,
Echo, Hunter.
Crosshair.
But yeah, is that an Australian or Tanzania?
I think is it New Zealand?
New Zealand, maybe.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not 100% sure.
Is Kiwi a derogatory term for New Zealanders, or is it like a good term? I don't know. Because I always hear people call them Kiwis, and I'm like, do you like being called? I mean, because a kiwi is a pretty horrific fruit. Like, I can't imagine anyone would like being called that.
I don't know.
It's furry. It tastes furry when you eat it. It's gross. Anyway.
I've had a kiwi maybe once, and
I wasn't a fan. They've got big old. Anyway,
I was about to say maybe it's like a honey fruit. You just have to get the perfect one.
Dude, honeydew is the most perfect melon like flavor out there.
If you get a good one, like the
it's hard not to get a good one because it's so good.
A hard disagreement right there. But when you get a good one,
welcome to Melon Chat with Ryan and Darryl.
Didn't know you were getting that this week, did you?
Special bonus episode. So Crosshair actually gets hurt in this episode.
Yeah.
But he was one step ahead of the four of them the entire time. Like, and when Tech broke into their comms, I was like, he's listening, you dummies. Like, he knows what you're going to do. He was with you. You guys have to start like being the Bad Batch and like being unpredictable. And they got that at the end. They did that with the engine and letting the engine off. I will say, I was a little like when I forget what, I think it was Wrecker who stopped Tech from talking about the lining of the engine compartments. It's like, I really was hoping that was going to come back into play where like maybe they rolled around in like, you know, whatever. They were able to like coat their armor with it. But then I was like, well, Omega doesn't have any armor, so she'll just get burned up. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this was a good episode. This was my favorite episode of the series so far. Even before Cad Bane showed up, and Cad Bane showing up just really added to it. Even though I think it's 100% fan service what they're doing, and the fact that they do it every week makes it feel really disingenuous with the story they're trying to tell. But you know, it's
because this is a big galaxy, and
it's the early days of the galaxy.
Yeah,
of the Empire.
I mean, in the sense of people just happening to run into each other all the time,
right? But they're going to planets that like they've never been to either, for the most part. And we're meeting different kinds of aliens, and you've got the different stormtrooper types now, and clone troopers, and you know, I'm assuming at some point we're going to see Commander Cody, but he's a bad guy. Like, I mean, Cody goes full in on the Empire, and like as far as the old lore goes. So we'll see what they do there. But yeah. All right. So out of 5 rigged to blow smoke bombs, what do you give this?
I gave this a 4. It's definitely my favorite episode of the season so far. Again, we needed to move the plot forward, and now that we have to, you know, Omega's captured. You know, the Kaminoans, you know, put Cad on the case, and you know, he succeeded where the other ones didn't.
Yep.
That's really going to, I think it should propel us in that to the back half of the season. One of the things I didn't mention that I liked is the conversation that Echo had with Hunter, and Hunter was talking about being on a different path.
Yeah.
And then Echo said something like, "We're soldiers. What other path is there?"
Yeah.
And that's. And you just see Hunter just kind of stop, and it's like, there's nothing he could say.
Yeah.
And that kind of just reminds me of, you know, what path are we on here? and not just in the sense of the Bad Batch as they're trying to protect Omega, but also what we're going to see from them as they get further and further away from what they were created to do for the Empire or for the,
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see where we go the next few weeks.
Yeah. So I go 4 out of 5 as well. Mainly for the action, mainly for, like you said, moving the story along. And this was actually just a fun episode that did not revolve around a heist of the week put on by someone who's going to, turn on them. And, we got Crosshair back, we got Cad Bane, and, with Omega being taken away from them, it's like when you have a good champion in wrestling who has the belt and doesn't work out as being, or a good wrestler who gets the belt and doesn't work out as a champion, versus a great wrestler who chasing the belt makes them more interesting. This is what we have now. All right. Supes and Lolo, episode 10. This show gets better every week.
Yeah. I have to say the negative about this is it's episode 10 and we only have like 6 more left.
Right. I have to say the negative about this is that this was on the CW and isn't a movie.
Oh man. Like the special effects on this show have always been pretty good.
They were good. They were good this week.
Yeah, this week there were a couple shots though that were just like not necessarily action, but just there's a shot of, and then again, there's a shot of Morgan Edge toward the end.
Yeah.
And I have to talk about this one. It reminds me of Man of Steel when he comes out in his suit for the first time, and then the sun is on him, and he just kind of looks up.
Yeah.
And has his eyes closed. And there's a very similar shot in this episode.
What's funny is like when I walk outside and it's sunny, I make that same motion.
Yeah.
I don't have any superpowers to like energize
that you know of yet.
But like, dude, I'm 43. If I had superpowers, I'd know by now. I'm not Bruce Willis in Unbreakable. I'd know by now. But like just that feeling of the sun on your face, you just kind of like your mouth like just kind of like goes up in a smiling fashion towards it, like you're a fish on a hook. So I have to say I did come into this week's episode a little apprehensive because I was terrified that Edge was going to reveal himself to be Zod. And if he was Zod, I cannot guarantee that I was going to rage quit the show.
You would have.
But I can't guarantee that I wouldn't have.
I think it might have marred a little bit of the goodwill that this show has built up for you. For me, I would have been disappointed just because, again, we talked about this before. Zod on Smallville was great.
Callum Blue was great.
He was great.
He's the most underrated Zod.
Yeah. But again, one of the things we like is different stuff.
Yes.
And I like the idea of Morgan Edge. And again, when we heard the brother thing, we're like, does he mean just Kryptonian brother? Like, hey, my brother, my Kryptonian brother.
Okay, so let's because it just picked
starts
up.
off,
it picked
right.
right up. Like this was great. Like they didn't make you wait for anything. So Edge reveals himself to be Tal-Rho, who is the son of Zeta Rho, and then Tal, let's just call him Tal, Morgan Edge, reveals that his mother is Laura Van-El, who is also Clark's mother, Kal-El's mother. And so he's significantly older. And the beauty of this is it explained it that Laura Van-El was married to, she was Laura Van Roe. And when she was married to Zeta, they did not see eye to eye, but they were matched. So they had to have a child. And it was the Kryptonian way where it was like, this kind of new mythos where the children are all artificially like artificial like insemination grown in a Kryptonian test tube sort of a thing. But then she fell in love with Jor-El and went off and did what she did. I thought that was great. I thought it was also interesting that she sent Tal to Earth, apparently without really thinking where he was going to land, because he landed in England. And this felt very much like the Flashpoint version of Superman, where he didn't land in Kansas. He landed in Metropolis. They captured him immediately. They tested him. They kept him away from the sun because they knew that's how he was powered. It felt very much like that. So it was kind of cool. And he was experimented on and everything. And then, he had the Eradicator, and when he finally escaped, that was a great little flashback. It was really, really cool. It also made me really, really happy to have Adam Rayner as Morgan Edge and not Peter Petrelli's older brother.
Peter Fasinelli.
Yeah. No. Peter Fasinelli was.
Oh no, Adrian Pasdar.
Yeah, Adrian Pasdar. Thank you. Because I don't think he would have given, I'm going to use your word, the gravitas to this role that it needed, because he was very regal. He was very confident. He was not maniacal or megalomaniac necessarily. He was doing his what he's trying to do here is kind of what Zod tried to do in Man of Steel.
Yes.
As far as bring the Kryptonians back. But he even said to Clark or Cal or Superman, whatever you want to call him, never in history have they found a planet that was so compatible. Mm-hmm. Like, so it's not like, oh, well, he's doing this just to do it. It's no, this is his chance to bring back his parents, his all of this stuff. And I thought that was really good. I think the one thing that I didn't like is when it came to figuring out how to use the Eradicator and Clark went back to the Fortress of Solitude, where I was like, oh no, I mean, Laura is the one who knew how to do that. I'm not nearly smart enough. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah,
How dare you?
Right? It's just like it was one of those things where, come on, like, it should have been like, I would have loved it if he said, we were a team on this. That is not, my Heartstone does not hold that data. It's in her Heartstone,
right? Which
was stolen by Zeta Rho.
That would have, but doing that, it took a little bit away from Jor-El and what we know his history to be.
Well, and again, it's just that CW thing where they have to take away the agency of a male character to build up a female character. They do it constantly. They did it to Superman on Supergirl.
Yeah, that's what.
And that, it was like, oh.
Yeah, that was the final straw in Supergirl. It was already on thin ice for me.
Yeah, same. And for that, it's like, man, Todd Helbig, you've done so well to this point that just that one little line, and it's a nitpick. It does not take away the fact that I'm going to rank this higher than I've ranked any other Supes and Lolo show so far. But it was just that one moment where it's like, come on, like, come on, like, be better.
Yeah,
don't give in. Don't just say things that don't matter when you have all these characters, and the fact that, like, everything that Edge had set up to that point had helped build up, like, Laura's expertise. And, at no point have we never thought of her as an equal to Jor-El. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. And it was her idea to send Tal-Rho. It was her idea to send Kal-El. She's the one who made that decision to give up her sons now in this instance, and send them away to help them, or to save them. And, it's interesting. I do like that he landed on Earth and he was a child, like an adolescent. Mm-hmm. And when he pulled the little Matrix tube out, and he was like, oh.
I like how you sent me the message before I had watched it, and you said something, mentioned the Brightburn.
Dude, he totally had a Brightburn moment, and I loved every second of it. I actually went back and watched Brightburn the other night.
Yeah, I haven't watched. I have to watch. One of the things I like about
Brightburn, 100% my favorite Superman movie.
One thing I like about how they framed the Morgan Edge character, not just in the sense of him being similar to Zod and wanting to bring his people back, but also seeing why he has such distaste for humanity, because they had him captive for years. Yeah. And did whatever to him. And so that anger and frustration and rage, colors how he looks at everyone and, humanity. And it makes sense. Like, you think about, hey, I came to this planet, the first thing happens is I get attacked. Then I get experimented upon. These people suck.
Right.
So, and that's the question I do have is, what is the attitude of general Kryptonians to humans? Because they're in
I think for the most part they didn't know about Earth. You know, it's not one of those things where they were like, oh, there's this planet out there called Earth with the yellow sun. I mean, Jor-El, you know, from you know previous canon, Jor-El found Earth and found that what the yellow sun would do to Clark or to Cal would make him better, like make him more powerful and enhance his already, you know, advanced Kryptonian genes. Now, not saying that Kryptonians don't have superpowers, they don't fly around, you know, for the most part. Sometimes they do, it just depends on who's writing them. But Jor-El did the research to find the planet to send them to. Now it looks like Laura has done that. Whatever. That
yeah,
again,
that's not. Yeah.
One of the parents did it. That's all that matters. Or both. Who cares? So getting here, I don't know if Zeta Rho and Laura Van Rho at that point knew what was going to happen to Tal. I think, you know, Jor-El purposely put Clark in a place because he studied Earth, and you know, and even in Smallville, he came to visit Earth and visited Jeremiah Kindt, you know, and it's like, oh, okay, I found a family I can trust, which was interesting.
Yeah. So the reason I asked that is because, you know, Sarah's father, played by Eric Valdez,
Kyle Cushing,
he's so good as
he's come on so well since the first episode.
But just like that type of that ability, not ability, but that, you know, just that rage towards, you know, everyone that he, you know, converses with.
Right.
It seems like it goes beyond, okay, we need to get rid of Lois for X, Y, and Z. It seems like, and I don't know if that's just the personality of that character, or if that was, you know, just something, because we really haven't gotten a lot of Kryptonians. We've gotten Leslie, but she hasn't really didn't demonstrated that same type of attitude necessarily. But that was just a question I wrote down, because the way he played it, Kyle, as you know, as Krypton Kyle or whatever, he reminded me a lot of the Viltrumites and how some of them look at humanity.
You know, and I think maybe you know, you got to look at it as a case-by-case basis with any person, that he felt that way. Maybe that particular Kryptonian was like, here I am. I've been put into this body. I have these powers. I'm superior to you. You know, Kryptonian supremacy is a thing for sure. You know, they look at it as like, look at what this world, what this particular universe galaxy does to us. We're the rightful next step in the evolution of this planet, regardless if we're from here
almost
or not.
Superior,
right? Well, I mean, but the question I have though is how much physiologically do the people who underwent the Kryptonian insertion of the mind melding, how much does the human physiology of these people change? Because they all fell to Earth, but kryptonite affects them. So you know, I think there's I feel like Supes and Lolo has done a good job of kind of like showing us something and going back and telling us, like, or giving us a bit of an explanation. Because the question you had, like, what happened to all these people when they fell from the sky? Yeah. Which, you know, we'll get to that in a second. And so I told you I don't know. But so yeah, this was great. The whole idea of bringing back not Martha but Laura. Because when so they put her in Lana's body, which I imagine had to be kind of weird for Clark.
Very weird.
So, but I think Lana figured out Clark is Superman.
I kind of was thinking that too.
I think she figured it out, and I think it's going to come out at some point later in the season. And because I can't imagine Emmanuel is going to be on the show for the long run. Like, maybe, I don't know. It just seems, I don't want to say she's too big for the show, but I feel like she's one of those kind of in-demand actresses. Maybe she's not. I don't know. Maybe just I'm a fan, so I'm projecting. But how much of Laura is going to stay in her, as well. And the same with Kyle, whichever Kryptonian was in him. Like that's an interesting dynamic because Kyle was in a kryptonite cage when it happened.
Yeah.
Morgan Edge kept Laura far away from the battle as a contingency, which I thought, is great military thinking.
So with that, keeping Leslie that far away, would it have mattered? And the reason I asked that is because one of the things even Laura says is that it depends on, like when he asked if it could be reversible, she said it depends on if there's a total melt and it could take hours,
right?
She said days, weeks, months, or something like that. So is she to that point where she is who she is, like, and the Eradicator wouldn't have done anything?
Maybe.
But to your point, I think you still don't want to take that chance as Morgan Edge.
Especially, she's your lieutenant. Like, who plays her? I don't have that written down. She's a badass. That character is awesome. I really enjoy any time she shows up.
And I like how they haven't inundated with her. They've given us just like little pieces here and there.
My favorite thing that they do with her is the super hearing where she eavesdrops on everybody. Mm-hmm. I think that's great. Like she must have been a spy on Krypton. Anyway, the whole thing this week with the twins and Sarah, I felt like was throwaway, except for John standing up to Sam Lane. Mm-hmm. Like, other than that, I kind of felt like it was too much. I think Jordan is going to end up telling Sarah he has powers.
I put that, like, how long before she finds that out?
And I don't think they haven't shown us anything about Sarah that makes me think that she is mature enough to handle that in any measure of interesting storytelling other than a CW style, like, oh, they're going to kick off the love triangle with her and John. And, Jordan.
Yeah, and I do wonder how this will. Well, yeah, because I agree with that. The kid. I just put like in the kids. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't really. It was interesting that it was Jonathan that told her about her father. I do find that particularly interesting. But I really love the scene where, she talks to Kyle. Mm-hmm. And then they would leave, and Kyle's like, "Hey," and he's talking to Jonathan. He's like, "When I get out of here, I'm going to kill you first."
Right.
And just that, the face, Jonathan's face is just like, "Oh shit." So that was one of the things I liked about that. To your point, I think it was, I usually like the stuff that happens with the brothers.
Yeah.
And this is probably out of all 10 episodes the weakest entry or one of the weakest entries.
I think it was just weak because they really didn't have anything for them.
Yeah, and
they shoehorned them in the episode.
And that happens sometimes where you can tell.
And it would have been like, I think there's things they could have used the screen time with them for, when they would have been like, you two stay here, like, we don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Protect each other.
Yeah. But yeah,
do I need to turn this off? You're getting distracted.
That just really got me. That I don't even know who that was.
Darth Bane.
Okay, but yeah, I think that was kind of like this where the episode slowed down a bit.
Yeah,
and
I here's the thing though, is they could have used it to slow the episode down and get it to the point where like the story can go, but they didn't. They tried to do a whole B plot there. That just this week the B plot didn't.
I was about to say this was an example of an episode that didn't need a B plot.
Now, again, saying that, I love this episode.
Absolutely.
I love the Kryptonian lore. I love the little Flashpoint Superman like kind of call out to Morgan Edge. I liked the moment that Cal had with Laura and how he called her mother. I thought that was really interesting
to differentiate between her and Martha.
But then when he said, I did have I had a mother here, her name was Martha, and he said it and I totally went, Martha.
I think a lot of us did.
Why did you say that name?
Because that's the first thing that popped up in my
absolutely
head.
Like F you, Zack Snyder. Goddamn Zack Snyder. More like Zack Snyder, if you know what I mean, people. But anyway, it is they've handled Superman so well, and seeing Superman get to talk to, the Heartstone of Jor, and the mind meld of Laura, I think in the same episode was really cool. And I think if you had more time, it might have been interesting to bring her to Jor-El and have Jor-El and Laura Van-El solve the problem together, because they solved the problem of how to save their son together. And to me, that would have been really, really interesting. And to see just kind of that moment of the two of them interacting across time in different levels of corporeal form.
Yeah. And again, to your point, what you said earlier about how much of the Kryptonian personality is going to stick.
Yeah. I kind of hope some of Laura sticks
because
around
I think that just is going to add to the second half of this season. Only 6 episodes
or the
left.
second season,
or the second season, and not just personality. Will they retain some portion of their abilities,
powers, whatever.
like is it something that over time, over the next few weeks, it they kind of bleeds out? And
are we gonna name Smallville New Candor or something like that? Were you surprised at how many had been changed?
Yes,
I thought that was really cool.
I thought it was going to be like 5 or 6.
I loved how they were triggered and like just took off. Like they stopped what they were doing and then they were off to go ruin Superman's day.
I was extremely surprised there were that many.
So it was cool though.
Yeah.
And the scene, and now the CG wasn't great here, but okay, hold on. Let me back up. So Clark takes the Eradicator and he figures out that it needs a tremendous amount of power, as much power as the sun. And obviously there's nothing like that on Earth except for him. And so he's like, I'll just dump everything I have into it. And he does that and more, the way he uses it, which I thought was really cool. But so as he's flying away, pulling the Kryptonians in, or the Smalltonians in, to kind of let off this trap. I love the just how he's on the, like, if you're looking at your TV, he's on the left side of your screen, and they're filling up most of the right side, and you see their heads, and then their eyes all turn on at the same time with the red. I thought that was really cool. It wasn't the best CG.
No.
But it was still a really cool visual. And my absolute favorite part of this is it showed how calculating Morgan Edge Talro is. He realized what was happening and backed off.
Yeah.
Like, and so I'm wondering, was Morgan Edge a person, and then Talro didn't actually escape and his consciousness was maybe put into Morgan Edge?
I didn't think about that.
So that's kind of where it's like he knows what's about to happen and he doesn't trust the bond, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And that again, that goes to the point. I will say I do think it is him. I think it is Talro, but that still adds to the fact of why he kept Leslie away.
Right.
Because even though Laura said there is a time where that bond is permanent, who knows?
Right.
So
just a thought. I mean, it's just a thought I had as I was
actually
watching
very interesting.
But I just thought it was such a cool scene, and then the wave goes out, it turns everybody off, and all these people are a mile up in the sky.
Yeah.
Like I said to you, like maybe Clark used what was left of his power to save them, which is why he couldn't make it into the fortress, and he passed out in the worst looking snow I've ever seen on TV. It was like gravel. Like I was like, did a nuclear winter happen? And because that looks like ash.
Yeah.
Ash, ASH, not ass, ASS. But I thought that was cool. I thought the special effect was awesome. I love when he's the way he was able to avoid the heat vision.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful. That was so beautifully done in flight. The only other time I've really, really thought they nailed Superman's flight was 2 times in Superman Returns, when he's coming down to stop the 747 to crash into the baseball stadium, and that bit of the wing breaks off, and he does that like roll, but like he still has to come back, like he kind of has to open up to slow down, and then dives right back into it, is one. And then the other part was when he was flying through Metropolis to get to the new island, Kryptonite Island, that Lex Luthor had just made, and things are falling apart and like things are falling down, and he's flying in this bit of glass, like massive, like all the windows in this building break and the glass is coming down, and he rolls over and he just melts everything with his heat vision, doesn't stop at all, and then just turns back over and keeps going once he saved everybody. Those, up until this point, those were like my two favorite like flying moments for Superman, and I loved this. I loved the way he like just flew. It was beautiful, and I thought that was really cool. And then how he turns the Eradicator and uses their power as well to amplify it even more. Just super smart.
Yeah, it's, again, I just love this show. And this episode, I don't know if it was my favorite because it just seems like it does like every week. It seems like it builds on top of what we've been given. So
it's great storytelling.
Yes, and that's how storytelling should be.
I'm shocked that this show is on the CW.
100%. Because again, we know what CW shows do. Even the ones we've liked.
Yeah.
So, and again, we've going through this, we've had issues with this episode, but they're like smaller issues again, and some nitpicks here and there.
Sure. I mean, there's nitpicks in this episode.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But looking at what this show has done, and like taking a look at what Loki does, for example, right? The show ended. Is it Wednesday yet? Because we can't watch on Tuesday because we watch on the app. But is it Wednesday yet? I don't have that same feeling. Is it Wednesday yet for Loki?
No.
I actually have all right, just show me just get it over with. Like with Loki, it's kind of like, it's 6 episodes. Just drop it all. Just drop the rest of it. But I mean, they're not going to, which is fine, but they need to get TV people involved with Loki and not movie people, with just the Disney Plus stuff in general, because WandaVision wasn't like that for the first 3 episodes. Episode 4 hits, and then it was an MCU movie. Virtue Signal and the Neutered Soldier was just a long movie, plain and simple. There was no big cliffhanger for anything, and Loki doesn't have any cliffhangers. He walks through a door, like, okay. Like, show me something that's happening in the multiverse, not just a line going all squiggly.
Yeah. Take stock in what they did. A show that had some of the best cliffhangers from week to week basis was The Expanse. I mean,
Lost.
Just tremendous.
Same, yeah.
And this show is, you can tell it's, with just the budget, but also.
Hold on, let's go back a little further. Buffy.
Yeah.
Buffy had great cliffhangers, but they didn't have a cliffhanger every week. That was the beauty of it.
And you don't need, yes.
Because Buffy started off as a procedural, plain and simple. It was kill the monster of the week, and then season 2, it turned into that larger story with Angelus and all of that. But you were like so tied into it. But you would go like 2 or 3 weeks without seeing David Boreanaz in that season.
Yeah.
You went multiple weeks without seeing Spike and Drusilla, and then even if you did, they kind of like doled them out in measure until it was time for that to be the story. Superman has done that. Loki does not. Falcon and Winter Soldier did not. WandaVision did
sometimes
until it got to the point where they decided they didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So out of 5 moms in your girlfriend's body, what do you give this?
Okay, that's a good one. I give it a 4.5. I really love the backstory we get from Morgan and Tal Rowe.
Yep.
It really puts us in perspective of what he wants. It's not just some 2-bit villain. He has a purpose, and again, agree or not, when you have a villain that has a purpose, it makes them all the more interesting. A purpose they believe in, not just I want all the money, and not just I want all the power.
Right.
But I'm doing this for a true purpose. So again, and I have a lot of questions as far as not like what the people that were I was about to say possessed. Where are they at in this? Are
Right.
they? And what happens to Clark? Because again, he's powered down. He's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, he's trying to drag himself into the fortress
And didn't make it.
and didn't make it.
Like,
So
it's so interesting. And so the on Wikipedia, the summary says elsewhere. So hold on. Superman lands close to the fortress before passing out, now drained of his powers. Elsewhere, Edge and Lar are in a canyon preparing their next move. They're at the base of the.
see, you said that to me too, and there's no snow though.
There is. It's up on top.
But if
like-
that's in now,
So
where
I mean, they're shooting in Vancouver. So,
okay, so
like,
my question was, are we saying because he's always had it in the Arctic?
Yeah.
If that's the Arctic,
I mean, it's still. So I get it.
And again,
but like I feel like it just seems like they knew what he was gonna do.
yeah,
And because Laura's been listening to him the whole time, like, they're
and
in
that's
on
true.
it.
So, and that's the question I had because I couldn't tell because it was pretty dark, and I never went back to see it.
And maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Like,
but because I asked you, I was like, he was very confident despite losing all his people, and that's one thing. Like, why is Taro so confident? It could be
because they're at the base
because
of the
they're gonna
Fortress
like,
Solitude.
okay, we'll
They're gonna be like, all right,
we'll take this, or it's something else, or both. Who knows? But so that was one of the big questions I had.
How great would it be if they're there next week? Picks up, he takes the Eradicator back, and then goes and takes Jor-El's Heartstone. Like, now he's got both, and the Eradicator, and he can, it opens it up for the last 4 or 5 episodes of the season, just to be balls to the wall awesome.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
So would you give it?
I'm 4.5.
Okay.
4.5 out of 10. I would have gone. I would have given it an extra, 0.25 if they would have done less with the twins and Sarah this week.
Yeah.
And I'm not bashing the twins and Sarah because the twins have been one of my favorite things about the show.
Absolutely.
And I think Sarah has been a very interesting character. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of that. It's just this week could have used my favorite word, a little restraint, with the B story, and just really focused in, because as much as last week felt like a mid-season finale, this week felt like a mid-season premiere. And you just kind of get it out there and you set up the rest of the story. And I don't know, there were no clues or hints given if Kyle retained any of the Kryptonian bad guyness. So
Yeah, I kind of hope he does because I think he's fantastic in that role.
Oh yeah. All right. So that's the episode this week. Thank you guys for listening. Any last words?
Nope. Is it Wednesday yet?
Is it Wednesday? We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
See ya.
The Infamous Podcast is recorded in Kings Mills, Ohio, just north of Cincinnati. You can find new episodes every Sunday on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast, our website, or anywhere podcasts are downloaded. This show is hosted by Darryl Jasper and me, Brian Tudor. To find more information about the show, visit us at infamouspodcast.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Infamous Podcast to keep up with the show. We also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/infamouspodcast. We have some great rewards for our patrons and are looking for help to grow the show to bring you more of the content you want to hear. Music for this podcast is provided by Michael Henry from meetmichaelhenry.com. So, whenever you're listening to us, have a great day, night, evening, weekend, whenever it is, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.